Wang cries after hearing baby's heartbeat during Bai Lu's pregnancy checkup. The whitewashed walls of the private hospital room seemed to vibrate with a quiet, fragile anticipation. Outside, the Beijing morning sun filtered in through the blinds, painting faint gold lines across the sterile floor. But inside, all Wang could hear was the quick, rhythmic thumping that wasn't his own. It was the heartbeat of their child. For weeks, the news had been buried under secrecy. Paparazzi had tried to sniff out rumors, speculating if Bai Lu's recent absence from public events meant she was filming something in secrecy, or hiding something much bigger. But this wasn't a movie set. This was reality. And it had just hit Wang so hard, he could barely stand still. Bai Lu lay on the cushioned examination bed, her dark hair falling gently across her pillow. She turned her head toward Dylan, her lips curling into a small smile as she reached out her hand. He took it without hesitation. The doctor pressed the ultrasound probe gently against her belly, and after a few seconds of silence, the sound emerged. Thump, 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 thump. It was fast, strong, alive. Dylan's breath caught. His lips trembled, and despite trying to keep it together, a tear slipped down his cheek. In that moment, he didn't care about cameras, fans, or the storm that the truth would cause online. All he knew was that inside Bai Lu's womb was a little life, half her, half him, beating as fiercely as his own heart. "Do you hear that?" Bai Lu whispered, her voice trembling but soft. "How could I not?" Dylan's voice cracked, a laugh breaking through his tears. "It's perfect." The doctor smiled knowingly, used to witnessing this emotional breakdown in first-time parents. "Everything looks healthy. Strong heartbeat. Development is right on track," she said, turning the monitor so they could see the blurry, gray image of the tiny figure inside. For Dylan, it was like looking at the most beautiful masterpiece he had ever seen. "That's our baby," he whispered, almost to himself. "That's us." Flashback. The moment he found out. Weeks earlier, Dylan had been in the middle of a hectic shoot schedule when Bai Lu showed up on set unexpectedly. At first, he thought she was just dropping by for support. But the way her eyes darted nervously and the way her fingers twisted the hem of her dress told him this was something bigger. I have to tell you something," she said, pulling him to a quiet corner away from crew members and prying eyes. Dylan, ever the quick-witted one, thought she was about to confess to taking one of his hoodies again. But the words that came out of her mouth froze him in place. "I'm pregnant." He blinked. Once. Twice. Then his entire face softened, and he reached for her like his life depended on it. He didn't shout, didn't panic. He just wrapped his arms around her, holding her so tight she could feel his heartbeat pounding against her cheek. And now, standing in the hospital room weeks later, that memory came rushing back, only magnified by the sound of their child's heartbeat echoing in his ears. The moment the world saw. Unknown to them, someone had already leaked whispers of this checkup. A blurry photo of Dylan holding Bai Lu's hospital report had been circulating on fan pages for hours before they even left the building. By the time they stepped into the hallway, the media was already on fire. Headlines screamed, "Dylan Wang to become a father?" Bai Lu's hospital visit sparks pregnancy rumors. "Baby Wang on the way?" Bai Lu clutched Dylan's arm as they made their way through a discreet side exit, her eyes darting nervously toward the few photographers lingering nearby. Dylan, however, didn't look flustered. Instead, he kept his hand protectively over hers, as though shielding both her and the tiny life growing inside her. Inside the car, the raw emotion. The moment they sat inside the car, the weight of it all hit Dylan again. He leaned back, hands covering his face. The image of that ultrasound, the sound of that heartbeat, it wouldn't leave him. Bai Lu turned toward him, resting her hand on his knee. "Hey, you're crying again," she teased gently. He let out a shaky laugh, brushing his eyes. "I can't help it. That sound, our baby's heartbeat, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I didn't think I'd react like this." Bai Lu's eyes softened. "You're going to be a great dad." That single sentence undid him completely. Without thinking, he leaned forward, pressing his forehead to her belly, whispering words only the two of them and maybe the baby could hear. Social media erupts. Within hours, the internet was split into two camps. Those who were overjoyed and those who were utterly shocked. Fan edits flooded TikTok. Slow-motion clips of Dylan smiling at Bai Lu from previous events, now set to emotional music with captions like, "He's going to be a dad." On Weibo, the hashtag DylanWangBaby began trending at #1 within minutes, amassing millions of views. Some fans recalled interviews where Dylan had talked about wanting to start a family someday. Others speculated if this meant a wedding was on the horizon. And then there were the skeptics, accusing the couple of staging the whole thing for publicity. But the real story wasn't in the headlines. It was in that hospital room, in that heartbeat, in the way Dylan couldn't stop holding Bai Lu's hand. An unexpected visitor. Just as they were about to head home, a familiar figure appeared in the hospital corridor, Zhang Lingyi. The tall actor, a close friend to both Dylan and Bai Lu, smiled as he approached. "I heard the news. I couldn't just send a text," he said warmly, giving Dylan a brotherly pat on the back before hugging Bai Lu. "Wait, you knew?" Dylan asked, surprised. Bai Lu smirked. "I may have told him before you." Dylan pretended to gasp. "So that's why you didn't look surprised when I almost fainted hearing the heartbeat. You've been keeping allies in your corner." The three of them laughed, and for a moment, it felt like everything outside those hospital walls didn't exist. Closing moment. Later that night, Dylan posted an Instagram story. It was just a short clip, nothing fancy, of his hand holding Bai Lu's, their fingers intertwined, resting gently over her small baby bump. No caption, no hashtags. Just that. But for millions of fans watching, it spoke volumes. Because they knew that behind the celebrity status, the flashing cameras, and the online noise, there was a man who had just heard his child's heartbeat for the first time, and it had changed him forever. The room was warm, but Dylan Wang felt a chill run through him that had nothing to do with temperature. It was the kind of shiver you get when life hands you something too big, too beautiful to fully grasp. The sound was still there, steady, rapid, and utterly captivating. Thump, 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 thump. He couldn't take his eyes off the monitor, where the tiny life form floated, curled up like a secret treasure. The grayscale image flickered with every movement, and though it was blurry, Dylan swore he saw the faint flutter of the baby's hand. Bai Lu glanced at him and burst into a quiet laugh. "Why are you staring like that? You look like you've seen a miracle." "That's because I have," Dylan murmured, his voice so low it almost got swallowed by the steady beeps of the machine. "Lu, that's our baby. Our baby." His hand tightened around hers, the veins on his wrist visible from the pressure. Bai Lu could feel the faint tremor in his grip. This was not the unshakable, confident Dylan Wang the public saw on red carpets. This was the man stripped bare, overwhelmed and undone by a sound he didn't know would break him in the best way possible. The close-up. The doctor, sensing the emotion in the air, adjusted the machine to zoom in on the baby's heart. The flicker on the screen grew larger, sharper, more defined. "There it is," she said softly. "Strong, healthy, and active. This is what we love to see at this stage." Dylan leaned forward, his breath fogging the monitor surface for a moment. He swallowed hard. "It's so small, but it's working so hard," he whispered. Bai Lu squeezed his fingers. "Kind of like you when you're running late for filming," she teased, trying to lighten the moment. He laughed through the lump in his throat. "Except this little one is already stronger than me." The first touch. Without warning, the doctor handed Dylan a pair of sterile gloves. "Do you want to touch?" she asked. His eyes widened. "Wait, what?" "You won't touch the baby directly, of course," she explained, smiling. "But you can place your hand gently on Bai Lu's belly while the ultrasound is still active. You might feel the baby move." Bai Lu's cheeks turned pink. "Go on," she said. Slowly, as though approaching something sacred, Dylan placed his hand over her abdomen. At first, he felt nothing, just the warmth of her skin beneath the gel. But then, the flutter. A tiny, almost imperceptible push against his palm. His head shot up, eyes wide. "I felt that. Oh my God, Lu, I felt that." Her laughter was watery now, her own tears threatening. "That's your kid saying hello." The video recording. Their manager, who had been quietly standing in the corner, lifted a phone and hit record. At first, Dylan didn't even notice, too absorbed in the moment. But when Bai Lu caught sight of the camera, she didn't stop her. "This needs to be remembered," the manager whispered. And so, the phone captured everything. Dylan's shaking shoulders, Bai Lu's glowing smile, the soft background sound of the heartbeat, and the look on his face, somewhere between shock, awe, and unconditional love. Little did they know that hours later, this short clip would leak online, sending fans into an emotional meltdown. But for now, it was theirs alone. The doctor's words. As the checkup neared its end, the doctor printed a series of ultrasound images and handed them to Dylan. "Here's your first family photo," she said with a grin. He held the printout like it was made of glass, running his thumb over the tiny figure in the picture. This goes in a frame the second we get home," he said, his voice firm with the kind of decision you don't back out of. Then, more softly, he added, "I don't care how busy I am, Lou. I'm not missing a single heartbeat from now on." Private whisper. Before leaving, Dylan leaned down, his lips close to Bai Lu's belly. "Hey, little one," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "It's your dad. I just want you to know, you already have me wrapped around your tiny finger. And I haven't even met you yet." Bai Lu's eyes glistened. She reached down, running her fingers through his hair. In that second, nothing else mattered. Not fame, not careers, not the endless flashing of paparazzi bulbs waiting outside. The doorway moment. They left the examination room slowly, as if stepping out would somehow make the moment less real. But just as they reached the hospital's side corridor, Dylan paused. "Wait," he said. Bai Lu turned. "What is it?" He looked at her with an expression she'd only seen once before, when he first told her he loved her. "Lou, thank you. For this. For everything." It wasn't dramatic, wasn't rehearsed. Just raw truth. And it made Bai Lu's throat tighten. She pressed her forehead against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong, just like the one they had heard minutes ago. Unseen by the public. Somewhere outside, the world was speculating, gossiping, spinning stories that ranged from sweet to scandalous. But inside that small bubble, Dylan and Bai Lu were simply two people about to become three. They didn't care that their secret was already halfway out. They didn't care that tomorrow's headlines would twist the moment into something loud and sensational. All they cared about was that steady rhythm still echoing in their ears, proof that their love had created something real, something alive. And as Dylan slid his arm around her waist, guiding her out into the sunlight, he knew one thing for sure. He'd remember that sound for the rest of his life.